Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. Just for my husband's sake, my name is Dr. Tobi Enuha. Yes, but I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to dive into it because I have 20 minutes. And like my husband said, you're preparing like you're going for a dissertation and you have 20 minutes. So I want to make sure that I get as much as I can out today, and I hope that you will be blessed by it. So let's just go into it. So some of you may know When Harry Met Sally, the movie. How many people have heard When Harry Met Sally, the movie? Or how many people know of any of the Jane Austen novels, Pride and Prejudice? Probably watched it. Yeah, so I'm talking about these things because these stories are based on what popular culture defines love to be. And that's based on the romantic view of love, romance. You know, when we hear about romance, our hearts, we're so smiley and giggly. And in the romantic view of love, love is a feeling. It's an instinct. When you meet the person that you're going to be with, there's an attraction there, and naturally you gravitate to one another. And you know, people say, I just know it in my heart that he's the one for me. I just feel it. There's just something about this one that's different. And that's the romantic view of love. And in the romantic view of love, your partner is meant to be quite intuitive. I don't need to tell you what I want. You should just know it. That's how you show you love me. And some people will tell their friends, they'll be like, I wasn't even like asking, and he just showed up with a bouquet of flowers and chocolates. Like, how did he know? That's what we expect love to be. And in the romantic view of love, he should love you flaws and all. If he expects you to change, then there's something wrong with him. I'm sure we have been those friends that will say, if he's asking you to change, please run, no. Why are you still there? He wants you to change. You are perfect. That's the romantic view of love. And in that view, loving right is all about choosing the right partner. And once you do, everything should flow naturally. And if you're married, I'm sure you're laughing on the inside because you know that's not true, even when you pick the person that is right for you. And what I want to do today is I want to share a psychology point of view on love based on research and clinical experience of what people before me and other psychologists have kind of found about love when they interact with people. Is that okay? So one idea we have is that love is not an instinct, it's not a feeling. It's actually something that we are taught. No one is born knowing how to love. You didn't come into this world knowing exactly how to love. And the person that teaches you how to love are the persons or people that raised you. That's how you learn how to love. And when we talk about love, we're talking about two distinct yet connected modes: to be loved and loving. Those are two different things, but they influence each other. Are you still with me? So the first display of love you have growing up might be a combination of healthy experiences that you remember, maybe some not so healthy experiences, or somewhere in the middle. Some of you, when you imagine your childhood, you might remember your mom's warmth, the way she cared for you, the way she nurtured you, the way she was there when you were crying. And some of you, you don't have such a good experience about what it was like growing up. Some of you may remember your parents as being a bit punitive or cold or distant. We all have different experiences with the people that raised us. And so it's no surprise here that we all have very varied feelings around intimacy and closeness. Some of you love to be intimate and close. You feel it, you crave it, you gravitate towards it. You're the ones that snuggle up to your partners. And some of you, you're like, don't touch me. I don't like to be hugged. It's not, no, it's not nice. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing too much? We all have very different comfortabilities around intimacy and closeness. And I want to share some school of thoughts around that. So all of us as psychologists, we all believe that as adults, you all have a template of how to love that you developed when you were children. And part of that, as you experience life, met people, you also gain skills and things that you've adapted in terms of how you love. But I want to tell you about 2 different schools of thoughts about how that shows up in your relationships. The first is a school of thought that we call psychoanalysis. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. But in this school of thought, we don't fall in love first and foremost with the people who will care for us in ideal ways. We fall in love with those who will care for us in familiar ways. So we tend to privilege familiarity over happiness. And that's why you may find that people might sometimes reject a boyfriend because they're just too right. They're too balanced. They're too understanding. They're goody two-shoes. I'm sure some of you have said, that one is too good. It's too good. I need drama. I need excitement. He's too boring. And that often is speaking to the fact that when you see someone that's reliable and understanding and balanced, it doesn't give you the up and downs of emotional highs and lows that you're used to. And so it's not exciting for you. And so you reject those people. And in this school of thought, what we do unconsciously is that we're trying to reenact or replay what it was like growing up with our parents. And so we try to seek that out in our relationships because we're hoping to either heal from them, master them, or understand them. So we think we're trying to gravitate towards somebody because they're going to love us right, but actually we're trying to gravitate towards somebody because they're going to love us in the ways that we're familiar with. So that's one school of thought. Are you still with me? Have I lost you guys yet? Okay. The other school of thought is what we call attachment theory. And what happened was a bunch of psychologists came together and they were watching children play with their parents. And they noticed that there were different ways that children reacted when their parents left and came back. And they were thinking, what's that about? And the more they looked into that, they realized that depending on the way your parents loved you, it was kind of easy to determine how you were going to react in different relationships. It was predetermined. It was so predetermined that they could predict when you're in a relationship how you were going to be with your partner. And so they call that attachment styles. And so they believe that we all of you sitting here today, have an attachment style. Some of you will say you're secure. You have a secure attachment style. And some of you, we might say you have an anxious attachment style. And some of you, we might say you have an avoidant attachment style. And what does that all mean? Yeah, let's talk about that a bit. So what they found was, if you grew up in a family or household where your parents were warm and nurturing, they listened to your needs, they were responsive to you, then you developed what they called a secure attachment style. So you feel comfortable with intimacy. You don't get anxious about relationships or your partner's ability to love you back. And you're able to communicate your needs to your partner. But then they noticed if you grew up in a household where your parents were inconsistent with their care, so sometimes they were loving and they were great, but other times they just switched up on you and they were punitive and they were cold and they were not really sensitive to your needs. They found that those children who had to live with mixed kind of signals, they were the ones that kind of developed an anxious attachment style because they couldn't really rely or trust that their parents would meet their needs all the time. And so them in relationships, they crave intimacy, they crave closeness, but they are quite notably insecure about the relationship and where it's going. And they're also very sensitive to their behaviors. Every little thing might be a sign that their partner might want to end the relationship. And so these are the people that if you don't call them back, they start getting anxious, and they think it's something that they have done. So they might call you over and over and over again, text your mother, text your cousin, text your friend. Have you seen Jide? I haven't seen him. Where has he gone? You know, those are the anxious ones. Or they're the ones that if you say, oh, let's go out, and you say, oh, not today, love. I don't really want to go out today. Say, why? Is this something I did? You don't actually take me out. We never go out. Why? Are you not proud of who I am? You don't want your friends to know who I am? So every little thing that their partner does, they're really sensitive to that to see if it might be an indicator that they don't love them as much or they want to end the relationship. And then they also found that for caregivers who were strict and emotionally distant, did not tolerate the expression of feelings, and expected their children right from the start to be independent and tough. They raised children that then became known as having an avoidant attachment style. These ones, they don't like intimacy and closeness. And for them, what they value over relationship is their freedom and their independence. And so every time they're talking to you, what they're negotiating is, how much of myself do I have to give for this person? So initially, at the beginning, they're there and they're loving, and then all of a sudden, they're like pulling back. You say, oh, can we hang out together? Oh, not really, I'm quite busy, maybe another time. And then when they're with you, they're fully there with you. But they value their intimacy more than the relationship. And they don't really care about if or not that makes you feel. So they're the ones that say, my boundaries are my boundaries. You either respect them or you don't. And they don't really care about how that would leave you feeling. And we call that the avoidance attachment style. So these are two different schools of thoughts. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it doesn't mean that it would apply to everyone. It's just different ways that psychologists have found that people love. And so what they summarize is that when we love, we're two individuals coming together, colored by our history. And if we're not aware of that, you and your partners will be fighting battles that you never started, and you don't even understand why those battles were there to begin with. And there's an expectation that even though they didn't start the battle, they should be able to end the war. And it can be very difficult. And so what I want to leave you with now, because I really want this to be practical, is a man known as Alan de Boston, who is the author of The School of Life. He's come up with what he describes as 5 emotional skills, regardless of your history, that can help us love better and to be able to communicate how we want to be loved. So I want to share these 5 skills with you, but with each skill, I'm either going to leave you with a prompt, something that you can go out and try on your own, or a question for you to reflect on about yourself. Is that okay? Okay. Well, okay, how am I doing for time, sis? Okay. So the first one is non-defensiveness. Having a mutual non-defensive readiness to admit to imperfections. To be able to say, I understand that in my mind, I think I'm great, but there are some things about me that are not great. One of the therapists that I really love, her name is Esther Perel. She says, you knowing everything you know about yourself, would you want to live with you? And some people might say yes, but if you're being completely honest, you knowing everything you know about yourself, would you want to live with you? So this is the prompt I have to begin to develop a skill of non-defensiveness. Ask a trusted and kind friend, trusted and kind friend, to say one critical thing about you and note your emotions. Notice what arises in you when they say that, whether possibly signs of hurt or outrage or fear, and dare to ask them for further information and to trust that your friend does not suddenly mysteriously hate you. And that's an exercise I want you to try, because it's going to help you see how much you are able to take in, no, I won't say criticism, because we do tend to try to hear things that people say they don't like about us as criticisms, but being able to make room for what your imperfections are. Yeah? So the next skill that he talks about is vulnerability. A willingness to let ourselves be vulnerable, to be able to communicate our needs effectively. And this is another prompt I have for you. What might you be embarrassed to admit to a partner, whether around money, sex, politics, personal habits, tastes, regrets, and be as frank as possible, but just say internally, I'm asking you now to try this. What might be one embarrassing thing that you're able to admit to a partner? And when you have that thing, with care and courage, choose a friend at your own time to make this confession to. And this is just a little exercise to get you to start practicing how to be a bit more vulnerable with the people that you care about and the people that you trust. The next emotional skill is tenderness. And I want to just like sit here on tenderness. Because there's something about our culture in Nigeria, the survival of the ones that are hard. If you want to get ahead in life, in school, in uni, and work, even at home with your house helps and people that help you, you have to be hard. Because if you're not hard, you are creating room for disrespect. So tenderness is not a skill that we're used to or that we allow ourselves to feel. Because we feel that when we are tender, we are... Did you see how I didn't... You guys all just say it louder. When we're tender, we are... There you go. So that is an unconscious belief that we all have. But actually, to love, there has to be a part of us that can be tender. And when we talk about tenderness, it's a generous, compassionate response to ours and our partner's flaws and errors. And so here is another prompt for you to try to allow yourself to be a little bit more tender. And let's try this one, because you don't need a friend for this one. So I want you all to think of something a person might do that would seriously offend you. Maybe they tell a lie, they betray you, they cheat on you. Something that will seriously offend you. I'll give you a moment to do that. When you have something in mind, just raise your hand up so I know. Don't worry, I'm not going to call you out. So you can raise your hand up. Something a person can do that will seriously offend you. Yeah? Are some people struggling to find a thing? I'm surprised. Because anger is one of the emotions that we easily feel. Okay. So most people have one, right? Okay. Now, what I want you to do is ask yourself, what would be the kindest explanation you can give to that person's conduct? If you had to give the kindest explanation as to why that person has done that thing to offend you, what would that be? I must tell you, I'm looking at your faces, and just getting you all to think of the kindest explanation, I'm seeing smiles. I'm seeing people laugh. Perhaps maybe because some of you are thinking there's no kind explanation. But what I'm trying to do is to get you to shift your perspective into another view of the person that allows you to develop compassion for the person, even in the midst of anger or difficult emotions towards that person. Because when you're in a relationship, while you might love a person, they will definitely do things to you that would ignite in you difficult emotions that may be contradictory to the idea of loving a person. I think one of the things that my sister always says that is funny, she's like, I can love you, but I don't like you. It's possible to love you, but I don't like you. Yeah? So to develop that sense of tenderness is the ability to be able to give a compassionate response to people's flaws and errors. The fourth one, we're almost there, is to have a therapeutic attitude towards how our histories show up in our relationships. So to remember that when you are standing in front of your partner, you're not just the only one standing there. You are there. The people who raised you, their voices, the way that they have imprinted on you are there as well. So a lot of times when you're reacting, it's important to ask yourself, where is this reaction coming from? A lot of times, people from the outside, they were like, I know he did something bad, but boy, did you see the way she reacted? I didn't think it matched what the person did. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to you, but to them, they're not just reacting to what the person did. They're reacting to what the person did that has triggered the templates of love they have in their minds. So here are 2 questions you can ask yourself at your own time, reflectively, to help you begin to develop that therapeutic attitude towards our history. Is, how have your assumptions about other people in general been unfairly colored by the experiences with other people in your earlier years? How have the assumptions about other people in general been unfairly colored by the experiences of other people in your earlier years? Another reflection question for you is, and this might be a tough one, what scars has the past left on your adult personality? Because nobody just comes out of an island. So everything about who you are is because of what has happened to you. And so as psychologists, we don't ask the question, why are you like this? We ask, what has happened to you that has resulted to you being this way? All right? And the last one, enthusiasm, a sufficient lack of anger to keep admiration alive. A sufficient lack of anger to keep admiration alive. And for this one, I'll just give you one thing to think about. Imagine gently explaining to someone that they have made you feel sad or angry. How does that make you feel? When you're able to truly express how you feel to someone, how does that make you feel? Because what keeps enthusiasm and a sufficient lack of anger alive in our relationship is our ability to express our feelings and our needs to the people that we care about. Because when we don't do that, that builds what? Hey, you guys are awesome. That builds resentment. It builds resentment. And I said because I've run over by 1 minute and 18 seconds. So I'm going to stop here. And I hope that was helpful in some ways. Thank you.